So one of the fun things about having a YouTube coffee channel, start to get gifts from your friends and family that are themed to coffee. So it was my birthday just a bit ago, and so I picked up a coffee gift for my birthday. Cult Hamburg Tea and Coffee Maker Magic 2. Give by the name Hamburger and the little comma for the decimal point. I think this is just like some German equivalent brand of like the Hario Switch or the Clever Dripper or whatever. So it is a combination immersion and percolation brewer. So an immersion brewer is like French press. You put a bunch of coffee in and you let it just sit for a while, and eventually you filter out the grinds. And then a percolation is like with a V90 or something, where you're just kind of pouring the water over the top and gravity kind of pulls the liquid through the bed of coffee grinds, and then you get coffee coming out of it. This is a combination. It comes with this little saucer, and I was wondering what this little saucer does. Well, it gives you a little place to park this device. Inside, you've got a filter. It is a metal mesh filter, because this thing is intended for either coffee or tea. So you can put some loose tea in there and the filter will keep the tea from getting out when it drains. So you put in your grinds or your tea, you add your water, and you let it sit there like an immersion brewer for as long as you want to let it sit. And then when you're done with that, this little platform here operates on a little valve. And so you just park it on top of your mug, and the thing drains, and then you have what would be coffee instead of water. Thought I'd give this a try. I've never tried this before. My initial thoughts, this is a metal mesh filter, so basically I'm gonna have to grind pretty coarse, and I have to worry about the fine grinds getting in there. So basically I'm gonna be pulling a French press on this thing. I'm gonna grind pretty coarse. I've got a fairly coarse metal mesh filter. You just can't get remotely nearly as fine as you can with a paper filter. So the result of that is you pick up a lot of the lipids, the oily parts of the coffee. They get through that a paper filter actually blocks. So honestly, if this were dramatically different than what a French press tastes like, I would be shocked. I'm expecting kind of an oily mouthfeel to it. On the other hand, it does drain through a coffee bed. And James Hoffman did a video where he tries out the Hario Switch, which is like this except with the paper filter, and he does some experiments to show that you actually get a good amount of the extraction as a result of the fact that it drains through a coffee bed. So it's not entirely going to be like a French press, but it'll be like it a little bit. So the question here is how I do it, what my recipe is. If you consult the instructions here, it's in 4 languages, right? But the first step, which just says, how much coffee to add, to how much water, it just says, fill the filter with loose tea or coarsely ground coffee. That tells me nothing. So what am I left to experiment with? Well, if I'm expecting this to be like a French press, I usually like a brew ratio of 13:1. So that's 13 grams of water to 1 gram of coffee grinds. On the other hand, the percolation method, like a pour over, like a V90 or something, there you have a lot more throughput of the water. So you end up brewing with a longer ratio, say 16 2/3 to 1, because you have kind of a fresh supply of water kind of always going through the grinds at a given time. So I'm kind of conflicted on exactly how to do my brew ratio here. I'm gonna go for kind of like a compromise between the two of them. We'll say 15:1, and we're gonna follow James Hoffman's example and do like a 2 minutes of steeping, followed by just letting the thing drain, and we'll see what we get. right, moment of truth. So as you must have noticed, that was a really fast drain. That was not fast motion or anything. That was actual drain time, which was very fast. But the grinds were coarse, and so was the filter. Kind of concerned that that might mean that it didn't extract that much, that it went through too fast. Looking at the final product here, I see little floaty oil lipids hanging out on the top surface. So it's a lot like French press. They're a little more like kind of broken up, but it definitely has got kind of an oily flow on the top, which is kind of neat looking. It is kind of weak. Yeah, this needed to be brewed stronger. It's like a French press, only without punch to it. I think I need to revisit this with maybe a longer brew time or a stronger brew ratio or something. It tastes like tea. Oh look, I put some coffee grinds in with some water for a while. I mean, it doesn't look all that weak, but just doesn't really have any character to it. Way too dull. All right, here's take two. So as you noticed, I ground the coffee finer and I let it steep for a full 4 minutes. Standard procedure how you would do a French press. So this is basically a French press plus, again, a pretty fast drawdown. So I'm a little concerned about how fast it drew down. On the other hand, maybe I'm at least getting the amount of extraction I would get out of a standard French press technique. The other thing is, because I ground finer, I'm a little bit concerned that some of those fines may have gotten through the metal mesh filter here. As I was looking over my instructions here, not only does it give no information at all about how much coffee to put in here, it just says fill the filter with loose tea or coarsely ground coffee, but it says, it doesn't give a time. It says after the desired brewing time. So it's really telling you nothing. It's like, here's my recipe for how to make a cake. Add the desired ingredients without telling you what the ingredients are. So it's really kind of worthless instructions from the magic tea and coffee maker cha cult company. But hopefully it'll have more of a flavor to it and it won't be so flat and there'll be a better extraction. It's better. Honestly, it's still worse than a French press. I'm actually surprised because I did immersion for 4 minutes, so I shouldn't be able to do worse than a French press. On the other hand, I am using like an espresso roast for this, so maybe I'm just kind of tasting the roastiness of it. Yeah, I think it's just, I'm tasting the roastiness. I think the other thing to do would be just to use my standard French press ratio of 13:1. So I basically just made French press here. This is a 13:1 ratio. So 15 grams coffee to 195 grams water. Gave it a 30-second bloom and let it steep for like 4.5 minutes. So this is basically just French press, except, you know, it drains this way instead of pouring through its own little filter, which means it drains a lot faster than a French press. Also, I used better beans, medium light roast stuff from Honduras. So it shouldn't be worse than French press. It's worse than French press. Just continues to lack the bite of a good coffee brew. Yeah, sadly, this thing is not made for coffee. I don't think I can get a good product out of it. It looks like a great device for brewing loose leaf tea. So, sorry, Mom. Thanks for the gift, but it was an interesting idea to try. Thanks for the idea for video content here. So, I do not endorse this thing, though James Hoffman seems to get very satisfying results with the Hario Switch or the Clever Dripper. So, just if you see one of these that's got like a metal filter in there instead of a paper filter, don't bother. It's only good for tea, not for coffee. So, thanks for watching. Remember to stay coffee snobby. And the thing drains. And then you have what we coffee in instead of water. So basically, Turner, stop moving around. This is a metal mesh filter. So basically, I have to grind pretty coarse This is a metal mesh filter, so basically I'm going to have to grind pretty coarse.